Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast with Eric Thompson.
Inspire, perform, profit.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast. This is episode number 18. This one is going to be extra fun because I am here with my really good friend, Laura Smith, who is our guest. Say hi, Laura.
Hi, Laura. Oh, I mean, hi. So good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. We are sitting here in Seattle, Washington, making this podcast. I am here on a Windermere trip and saw it as an opportunity to connect with you, a fellow podcaster. You have your own podcast and now you're a guest. So what's it like being on the other side?
I'm going to figure that out. This is
Yeah,
my
right.
first time on the other side. A lot less control.
Right. Got it. Yeah.
Yep, it's awesome.
Yeah, so away we go. And thanks to all of you who are listening, as always, for tuning in and engaging with us. I greatly appreciate it. Let's have some fun. And so I know there's going to be a lot of great takeaways that we're going to get from Laura today. And so why don't we just start, Laura, with tell us about your current role. So you are with Windermere Real Estate. Tell us exactly what you do for Windermere.
Current role in Seattle. I have 6 offices. I'm a co-owner with Obi and Jill. And I also, though, see the day-to-day from like a general management role. And then from the state's perspective, I'm the designated broker.
Okay.
So really oversight of those 6 offices.
Okay.
Looking to drive those in growth, retention, and support.
And how many agents are in those 6 offices?
I'm going to say roughly 300, although
Okay.
we looked at those numbers yesterday and it's anything from 268 to 312. So we got to dial that in
Depends
a
who you
little
ask,
bit.
right?
Yeah, well, you know, and really gets into the conversation of, you know, who is full-time and who's looking to exit, and as our industry begins to age, what that looks like. So
Right.
we've got a handful of people that are hopefully mindfully exiting.
Yeah.
But that's a big piece of our database right now.
Got it. Yeah.
Focused on it.
I think overall you have, it's a significant role. You have 6 offices. You have in the neighborhood of 300 agents that you oversee. You're the designated broker. And you have how many managers report to you, or how many?
One at each branch.
One in each branch, yeah.
So there's me, and then there's 6 managers.
Yep.
And then there's Obi and Jill, and I look at us as the leadership team.
Yeah.
And then depending on the size of the office, we've got assistant managers. Roughly 1 assistant manager to every, say, 50 people.
Okay.
And then staff-wise, we've got, you know, 2 to 3 full-time at any given office.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. And before we get too much into business here, just as a way to let people get to know you a little bit better, tell us a little bit about your family.
Family. I have a husband. His name is Chad, and 2 kids, ages 12 and 10.
Yeah.
12-year-old, my son Shale is in 6th grade, and my daughter Piper is 10. She's in 4th grade. We live here. My husband and I basically grew up in the same neighborhood, so very local, and we're having a blast raising these kids together.
Yeah, that's awesome. So both of you from here, raising your kids here,
Yes.
here in Seattle, loving life, and I know you are. Knowing you're super committed to your family, and it's admirable, and you have a tremendous, wonderful family. So
Yeah, Eric,
bravo
you
on
and I
that.
talk a lot about getting clear on your why.
Yeah.
My why is very clear, right? It's my family, it's my community,
Yeah.
it's the people around me,
Yeah.
and drives that joy every day.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so tell us the story. You know, here you are today with a significant role, 6 offices, 300 agents, lots of staff, lots of people you're responsible for. Tell us the story of how you got started in real estate and then joining Windermere and your growth and that whole path. Could you tell us that
Sure,
story?
Yeah. So real estate is literally all I've done since college.
Yeah.
So I graduated college with a psych degree, which I think plays a role in all of
Absolutely,
this, and
absolutely,
I didn't know that it would, but it certainly does now. Graduated in 1998 from Willamette University. And it was interesting. At the time, I was engaged to marry Chad my senior year in college. And so as I was looking forward to graduation, we had this conversation of, hey, what is Laura going to do when she grows up, right, post-graduation? And Chad is 5 years older, and he had already been out in the real world, if you would, and was running King County Special Olympics. So he was in a job, a job. And the advice he had given me at that time was, hey, let's get you, you know, if I was to do this over, I would be, you know, working for myself on some level, you know, that entrepreneurial spirit, which he has.
Yeah.
Very, very deep. I didn't know that I had that. So I really followed his lead. You know, at the time I was 22, 23 going into this profession. And we had a friend in Seattle, a very good friend, that had a brokerage, a small brokerage called Cyberland Realty at the time. And it became, well, I should say, Chad talked me into real estate, and then he talked himself into real estate. So he quit his job. The two of us went and sold real estate together, got married. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's what
when
was
I
on my
think
mind
about
when you
that
said
is-
that. The two of you together.
The
So,
two
yeah.
of us together.
On straight commission, both,
Straight commission.
supporting a household on straight commission.
Yeah.
And
And the good news, at 23 and 27, 28, there was less outflow,
Yeah.
right? So supporting a household was, maybe less risk.
Yeah.
But we've still felt it. We felt every part of that. So there were literally in this small brokerage in Seattle, there was 4, maybe 5 people at the time. That firm turned into a property management company, which is very robust now. But we were, I don't know, a year into that, and Chad and I got a little antsy as where we should be. We didn't know anything different other than just working with a friend. I didn't even really know how to spell real estate. Is it one word? Is it 2 words? Certainly, I had no transactional experience myself. And so we got involved with a company called eHome. And that was during the dot-com bust time.
Right.
It came up from the Silicon Valley. It was during that first, at least in my world, that first round of a lot of venture capital keeping things up. This company had $11 million, which sounds like nothing in our day and age, but they had $11 million. It was a lot at the time. Make a long story short, we were the 2 agents first hired to serve Tri-County area here in Seattle. So we set up operations in Kirkland. He was what they called a field agent. So he was the one out in the field, and I was like a house agent internal. So I was the one communicating, flow of things, organization, and he was out in the field. So it's similar to almost what I do now, just from that organization point.
Sure.
But for me, being so young, it was fantastic because I did get to crank on a lot of transactions, at such a young age.
Right.
So it did give me, I guess, training that way.
Yeah, I'm thinking about athletics, and so it's a lot of reps, right?
There were a lot of reps at a very young age.
Yeah.
So they came in, eHome came in, and they wanted to come into this marketplace with billboards and advertising and shiny things. And so I got to live and experience that, which I am so grateful for doing that. So fast forward, $11 million lasted 11 months. Goes quick when you have the most expensive rent in the area on Caroline Point in Kirkland. Everything was flashy. Everything was tech driven. So it was awesome to experience it. And I look back on it, and eHome tried to come into our region when you've got players like Windermere at the time.
Yeah.
With something called market share, right? And something called relationships and being local. Even though Chad and I were local, eHome was not.
Right.
So I lived that, felt that, and I'm very grateful that I did that prior to coming to Windermere. So I got notice that we were closing shop the next day at a meeting. So that was that, and that was going into 2000, the holidays. And that is when I reached out to both a friend and a Windermere owner, Rich Menti, at the time, and he said, go interview at Windermere. And at that time, Chad and I decided, okay, only one of us is going to do this. So that's when we made the decision.
Got it.
I was going to stay in real estate. He was going to go do something else.
Got it.
So there was kind of the tipping point there.
Yeah. Okay.
And then from there, I interviewed with Matt Carroll at the Wedgwood office of Seattle, which is one of our 6 offices now that I oversee. And I sold them. Yeah.
Got
so
it.
that's where I got involved, roughly 2000 with Windermere.
And then when did you first step into management, going from selling real estate to in a leadership management role?
Yeah, I kind of look at all timelines based on when my children were born, I think.
Yeah.
So if I think about that, Shale is 12, and I believe he was born at the time, so very, very young. So we're going to say 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And Obi came to me one day and said, hey, would you be interested in trying on management? I want to open up a small office in Green Lake. What do you think? So I said yes. I had been selling for a long time at that point, since I had started at 23.
Yeah.
So those reps, kind of those 10,000 hours from the outliers and all of that,
Right.
I had done it.
Yeah.
And the fun thing there for me was I was able to, it was a very small office. At any given time, it was 7, 8, 9, 10 people. And that I still needed to sell real estate. And so I did both.
Yeah.
I got to try on both. I didn't have to leave my database and my selling side of things and try this on to say, gosh, do I like this?
Right.
Right. And then we were, at the time, Wedgwood was looking to hire a manager. So we were going through a transition at that time. And the general manager at that time, we were talking, I was helping kind of through that interview process, and we're down to 2 candidates. And the general manager said to me, hey, we're not loving these 2 candidates. And she kind of scratched her head. She goes, God, would you do this? You know? And I knew at that moment, I went home and I talked to Chad. I said, if I do this, I know that I am hanging up those cleats.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I am fully committed to leadership and fully committed to this path. Like, how do we feel about that?
Yeah.
It was a pretty easy decision, having done both. I think that coach in me is just strong.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Very, very strong. I think, my background is athletics, and I kind of look at from psychology degree to all the reps I had on the court or the field. I always thought I would be a teacher, a school counselor, and a coach.
Right. And that's exactly what you do.
It's exactly what I do. It's kind of like an aha moment these last few years to realize that. But I've found that real estate has become my sport. And so it didn't need to be basketball. It didn't need to be tennis or whatnot. And it didn't need to be being a school counselor or a teacher. So truly, this profession has been so good to me. And it's created the sport to which now I get to play.
Yeah, and you are in exactly the right fit for your skill set and what you love to do, and you contribute so much. Yeah, you're totally in alignment. Totally in alignment.
I feel that every day.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of athletics, a few weeks ago you attended a little workshop I put together. So it was a coaching mastermind. It was a mastermind of world-class real estate coaches. And we got together to really learn from each other so that we could all be better. We started, I know you remember this, we started with a warm-up exercise that I called It's Probably Because. And it was a fun way to kick off those 2 days and see what was on the mind of all the coaches who were there. And so just for everyone listening, it went like this. If you can imagine someone who's having a lot of success in real estate, super fulfilled, having great customer satisfaction, lots of transactions, imagine that purpose and then complete the sentence. It's probably because. Well, if you think about that person and the success that they're having in your head, you're going to think, well, it's probably because of this or that. And so could you share with everyone listening, just based on, you have experience with literally hundreds and hundreds of real estate agents, as you think about those people who have a lot of success, how do you complete the sentence, it's probably because?
They're focused.
They're focused. Just as simple as that.
It's
it
that
all comes
simple,
down to that.
because it all boils back to that. I think.
Yeah.
You can call it. So since that mastermind group, I've asked a lot of agents that, and managers that, and a lot of it is it's because they're in flow, right? They've got a database that's large enough, and they're visible versus invisible. All of these very ninja principles. At the end of the day, all those principles are great. If you're focused.
If you're focused.
Right?
Yeah.
You're focused on working a plan, your plan.
Yeah.
You're focused on growing your database versus letting it dwindle each year. You're focused on your craft.
Yeah.
And with that focus, you have the ability to tune out a lot of the noise and distraction around you.
Right.
Because it's daily.
Yeah.
It's daily.
Wait a minute, you mean that there's distraction in this business?
And I have to work on it every day, right? And
Yeah.
every day I talk a lot about, how I set my day most of the time with people in coaching sessions. And it all starts with, my feet getting out of the bed and what's the first thing that goes through my head. And that sets my focus.
Got it. So what do you, you alluded to a little bit before, but what are those people focused on? So focus is the key. They're focused on their habits.
They're focused on their habits. They're clear on what those habits are.
Yeah.
They're really good at being able to identify whether it's daily, weekly, annually. Are they doing the right things?
Yeah.
Right. So you might have great 8 habits, at some point you better find out, should I stop any of those?
Right.
Are they really, do they have a return on my focused investment?
Yeah. Right.
And gosh, this is really working, so maybe I should amplify that and spend more time there.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So if we were to flip this in reverse, and if you were to think about those that are not having success, think of the opposite end of the spectrum, not having success, not fulfilled, low energy, all the things that we could use to describe them. Would it, for you, simply be the opposite? Would it be that they're not focused, they have lack of focus, or would it just be that, or are there anything? Are there other things that come up?
Other things.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, Eric, have talked a lot about, and you've shared with me a lot about the power of just clarity and your why.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think that you've got to know what that is.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's really not going to get you up in a very high positive state,
Right.
which is going to attract people to want to be around you.
Yeah.
And work with you and trust you and like you and all of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
Why? Sometimes, and most of the time, I had a great coaching session this week actually with an agent, not a manager, and we sat down for about an hour. And it's somebody that I know her business plan. She shared it with me. She's just somebody willing to be coached in that place, and she's struggling. She's struggling financially so far this year. And so we looked at, and I know she's doing the right things in my mind based on her annual plan.
Right.
And she's actually very focused on what her daily rhythm looks like and her weekly rhythm based on the conversations we've had. We sat down, and there were some real slight edge things in there that I think are going to make a tremendous difference that we change. They're not giant. But for example, first things she was doing when she comes into the office are the things I think should be done before you ever get to the office. Okay, so spending time on whether it was her notes, her affirmations, or setting her schedule for the day. Well, she was doing that once she got to her desk, to which I see those activities once you come into the office have already been accomplished.
Right.
So that's not possible for everybody. It depends on how your life is crafted. I just know enough about her life and her young child and her husband and what that looks like that we realize, and she's a morning person as well.
Yeah.
She just is, that we could get a couple of these things done. These are not done when you get to the office, but the things that really produce results that working on your business from 8:30 to 11.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about winning the day by 11, which was really fun. She's going to do that, right? So that was a very slight, it's just incremental shift.
Yeah.
That I think the habits she was doing actually were not necessarily producing the results.
Yeah.
Even though they still need to be.
That's a huge takeaway. It was the right thing, but the wrong time.
That's it.
So just shift when you do it, and that frees her up to do other things that when she first gets to the office. So she's not starting from zero. She's already done a lot of that groundwork when she gets in.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
setting her day just a little earlier. And that would look different. The beautiful part, I think, of what you and I do is I don't want this to look the same for everybody.
Right.
I mean, truly, I think this is much harder work, with 300 agents and 30-some staff and 6 managers. Gosh, I don't want it done the same way.
Right. And nor do they.
Yeah, and nor do they. And so I think in a leadership role, in a coaching role, the best approach, it's the hardest approach and it takes the most time, is meeting somebody where they are at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that Strength Finder book. That's what gave me foundation years ago, is to say, understand somebody's strengths, amplify those, and build. I mean, my goal is to build a company around strengths, and whether that's the agent population, the staff population, or the leaders involved.
Right.
Because we're not robots, and we've got different strengths.
Different strengths, yeah. And the key is understanding, number one, understanding that fact that everyone's different. Number two, understanding what those strengths are, and then tapping into those. Brilliant, great stuff.
Yeah.
So something I'm really looking forward to asking you is this. So you've gone in your career from selling real estate to managing realtors, managing agents, to now what you do is you manage managers.
Correct.
And my own experience is that's different. There are some similarities, but there are some things that are different. So what I want to ask you, just knowing that there are lots of leaders who are listening to this, what have you noticed about the difference between managing agents and managing managers?
Well, the similarities are probably the easiest.
Okay.
So let's start there.
Okay, let's start
and
there,
I'd like
yeah.
to hear what you have to say on this too.
Yeah.
So I think the similarities are very similar, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of, we have, a sphere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So this, when I was selling, I had a sphere of people. I had a database. When I'm managing and leading a company, we've talked about it. I've got a sphere, I've got a database, and it's 300 people plus staff plus 6 managers. And so the activities around that, they look very similar, right? In the sense of I've spent a lot of my time these last few years in the current role is gaining people's trust. So that's very similar, and that's through engagement and showing up and how I show up. So I think when I am coaching an agent or I'm coaching a manager, the activities are so simple,
Yeah.
and yet can be so difficult, and we can have blind spots pretty quickly if we're not focused
Right.
on the right ones. So I'm a weekly planner. So if I was putting an ideal week together for agents, or I was putting a weekly planner together for managers, it's very similar,
Yeah.
right? It's very similar in the sense of how am I growing my business as an agent, or how am I growing my business as a manager, as an office? So there's growth. Call it the database for a second for both of them. There's growing a database. There's retaining a database through the right activities and habits and love and everything else of that. And then there's support and tools and all of that. Do you
Right.
agree?
Yeah.
Do you
Oh,
find?
totally. Totally. Yeah.
If we were to take 9 things in a given week, I think they're real similar.
They're very similar. Yeah. I mean, it's all about human connection and connecting with people,
It
and
is.
number of times you're connecting with people and how you're connecting with people. So I totally agree. Those things are all very similar.
Yeah, so let's talk about those
Yeah,
differences.
so what's different?
'cause
Yeah,
I
so
am
in your
kinda
mind, what's different for
curious.
you? Yeah.
What's different, right? The focus versus distraction is the same.
Yeah.
So that's the same. When I was interviewed to go into the leadership role at that Wedgwood office years ago, around that 2000 mark, that panel asked me, why do you want to do this? Right? And I realized that the house was never the end goal for me. It was always about people,
Yeah.
So I do think in that leadership role, it's 100% about the people.
Yes.
It just is.
Yes.
The end product happens to be that we exist because agents are doing a great job of selling real
Yeah.
estate,
Yeah.
which there is a product out there.
Yeah.
I just go back to the similarities. It's
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And meeting people where they are at, understanding what their end goal is, whether they are buying or selling real estate, or they're leading an office or a company, and then helping them get there.
Yeah.
So for me in that role as coach, it's the same.
Yes.
Tuesday of this week I had 2 manager coaching meetings and 1 agent coaching meeting. They didn't look too different,
Right.
right? They
Yeah.
didn't look too different.
Yeah. So for me, and I would guess the same as for you, the biggest kick I get out of a day or out of a week is when someone comes to me, an agent comes to me and says, hey, Eric, that thing you told me to do, it worked.
Right.
Or even better, when a manager or other coach says that to me, that thing you told me, or that thing you coached me on, or that thing you helped me with, it worked. That makes
Lights you up.
my day, right?
Yeah, lights you up right
makes
now,
my day,
lights
makes
me
my
up
week.
just sitting here.
Yeah, you're totally the same way.
And
Yeah.
so, I think back to selling, right? So if I'm able to help somebody achieve that goal, and frankly in this market, it's been winning that house,
Yeah.
pretty jazzed,
Yeah.
right? What's interesting, there's a little bit more of a competitive thing there, though, because there's a real winning
Yes.
of something, but
Yeah.
that's been our marketplace more than anything.
Yeah.
And I am competitive.
Yeah.
But you're right. When you give a tool to a manager and they go do that and they implement in that office and it works, game over.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
just drives
It's the
my
best.
joy.
It's the best thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My observation is so successful agents, the most successful ones are the ones who are the most focused on their client as opposed to focused on themselves. But I think in leadership and management, that becomes even more important. And I think that becomes like exposed when the leader manager doesn't have that focus on the other person, because you said it, in a leadership management role, it is all about the other person, and it can only be about the other person. If it's ever about yourself, then the whole thing just crumbles, right? People can see that, they can sense it, and you lose trust, you lose the integrity, you can't, you
If there's
lose
any
their
part
heart.
of that, you shouldn't be in that leadership role.
Yeah, because it at that point it can only be about the other person. You just have to like let go of your own personal agenda, your own, certainly you do have personal goals,
Yes.
but they have to be fulfilled through other people. Sure. And you're just like totally turning over, trust in your future to these
law
other.
Of detachment,
yeah, right.
Trust.
You just detach from the
trust.
outcome. Yeah, so you have to be just all in for other people. And so the mistakes I made in like hiring managers and leaders is when I hire people, or I put people in leadership position who are not all about the other person, and it never works out.
Yeah,
So,
we're in the midst of bringing. So we've got our 6 offices, our 6 managers, and you and I have talked a lot about leadership and leadership roles and helping identify people that are on the bench. That works very well for me. It's like a basketball term, so thank you for that. I get it. And so we've tried to make leadership changes when they happen, just organically, already having identified somebody. And so recently we were able to do that. So I've got somebody that truly we announced this week. And when I sat down and spoke with her, it was, I asked her why. Like, why are we really having this drink? Why are we having this conversation? Yeah. And surely it was, I just love helping people. And when I had asked Obi Jacoby, X amount of years ago, decade plus, what's the job description? So when he said, hey, do you want to go do this at Green Lake? I said, well, what's the job description? In my mind, I need to know, right? And he says it's to help people.
Yeah.
Turns out there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
He didn't tell me that. So I still give him a hard time. Yeah. But it goes back to that. He was right. He's brilliant to say that.
Yeah.
And he trusted me to go figure that out.
Figure out the rest. Yeah.
I don't know if he knew he was going to trust me that much, but he did, and he detached, and you said go, and let me know if you need anything. So, but truly, anything else that you find that are differences?
That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
It's getting, and if they're not all the way there on being able to let go of being focused on themselves to focus on the other person, it's just all the coaching is around that.
They're really givers.
They have to be givers.
They're really givers.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Symbiotic relationship, yet they're givers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the way I see you, you're a world-class communicator. You're really, really good at that. And I know you make a big commitment to that. You really commit to being a great communicator, a clear communicator. And as I see it, the challenge is you're communicating across not only multiple people, literally hundreds of people, but multiple locations, 6 offices spread out geographically. So I want to ask you, just knowing that communication is so important for everyone who's listening, how do you communicate across not only so many people, but across all those different locations? Like, how do you get clear communication out there? How do you get, consistent message out there? What have you found to really work when it comes to communicating?
I've found that, to scale that communication, I'd love to communicate. One, I think it's, as I said earlier this morning, I would probably podcast all day long. All day long, people can come in here and we can chat. I just love it. But that's not the end all. And I found that I needed to scale it, right? One, when I got into this role with the 6 offices and we established what that was going to look like, I thought that to myself, holy smokes. 80% of the people may not even know my name.
Yeah.
Okay, so I use communication to gain trust. And to do that, I started putting systems into place. For example, I love the written word. So I do love to blog.
Yeah.
And I blog every Friday.
Yep.
And
the audience for that blog are really your own people.
It really
within
is.
the company.
And it's spidered out beyond there for sure. I mean, I've got.
That's who you're focused on.
That's my focus. So in my blog, in my podcast, those 2 vehicles, it's very internal focused.
Yeah.
Even though it's out there for public consumption, if somebody's interested, great. Love to have you along. But that was a way to, I think, just take a leadership quality to communication and get it out there. So that goes out every Friday, the blog piece, and that goes to all the offices, and then those that subscribe, right?
Yeah.
You know, they get it immediately. So there's that. I took it up a notch and I added the podcast to it, and that is just once a month.
Okay.
That's been on pretty much consistent rhythm where, you know, the first half of the podcast is a legal bite. So I've got one of our attorneys from Demco on air, if you will, and we just kind of hash out one digestible legal bite, something that's coming across his desk and my desk a little too often.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
So there's that, and so you grab the personality types that are attracted to listening to something legal, right? And then I go right into doubling down on an idea we're spreading internally. So I've got 4 people on the mic, so it's usually myself, one of my managers, the attorney, and then one broker.
Got it.
Okay, agent broker.
Yeah.
Depending on which state you're in.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And really focusing the conversation, the second half of the conversation with the agent broker, in something they're doing that's working. Yeah. So that's the idea we're spreading. So there's that. So there's a sharing kind of culture within my communication, trying to drive more back and forth a little bit with the blog. You know, putting something out there. So for example, your question of what does success look like, but
What do you? It's probably because
that was in the last couple of weeks blog. So
Got
getting
it.
that conversation going, and then physically trying to get to each office. And we've got office meetings every week, so trying to get on rhythm. I'm just showing up in the physical.
Yeah.
And then I found out very quickly in this role that I could not do my job well unless I had great staff.
Yeah.
And over these last 12 months, I've very much felt like I know our staff. I know their strengths. I know their weaknesses at each location. Together, collectively, we're strong. And so I've stopped looking at these 6 siloed staffs, and I've looked at them as one staff and leaning on people in different ways.
Great.
And so I've got, just a simple email distribution with all of them now, so that they also feel like they're part of something bigger, because they are, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of specific email distribution lists for messaging, so that they're engaged and they can then get that out to the offices. I don't want to replace managers and staff. Like I really think my database is the manager and the staff, and then they really own those offices and their leadership roles, and their communication then in their way,
Right.
why people show up to their office, is theirs.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm another layer for the 300 brokers.
Yeah.
And you can't get a hold of your manager, text me, call
Right.
me, email me, come
Right.
find me.
Right.
And
Got it.
I do believe we're really close to our 6 offices really understanding that I'm there as another layer of support for
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah. Got it.
And that's just taking time, though.
Yeah.
It's just taking time.
Well, what comes up for me is that you're all in on communication, and the answer is it's all the above.
Yeah.
So you podcast, you blog, you show up face to face, you communicate with your managers all the time. You're texting.
I
You're
hope you notice things.
Oh,
I text people. Just
Yeah.
anything that we would coach or teach an agent to do with their clients,
Yeah.
their database, is I'm looking to do those same things in a given week.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And break that down.
Okay, last question. There you were back in the day, and you were tapped on the shoulder. There you were selling real estate, and you were tapped on the shoulder to go into a leadership management role. And so, what advice would you have for the aspiring manager? So let's pretend there's someone listening, and I know there are people listening who they're an agent or broker today, and they think about, well, someday I could see myself in a leadership role or a management role. What advice would you have for that person?
Yeah, call me.
I call you, yeah.
I didn't ask a lot of questions.
Yeah,
And I'd say ask a lot of questions.
got it.
I thank goodness this has worked out for me, and that I feel the joy of this role and alignment of this role every day. But it doesn't happen like that for everybody, and so I seriously say that. Call me. Let's just talk. But the reality of it is, I think you've got to sit down and really map out the why you would want to make that change.
Yeah,
I wasn't clear on that going into this, and again, dumb luck, it worked out. But getting clear on that transition,
yeah,
on that why,
Right.
and then trying to talk to other people that you see doing a great job of it, and ask them their why. See if this
Yeah.
aligns at all.
Yeah.
Is my why right?
yeah, yeah. So it can't
more
be
conversations. Again,
can't
back to
be
communication.
out of boredom. I mean, I've seen that before. Well, yeah, and just kind of
Looking
feel
for
stale.
something
That this,
else.
yeah,
I
looking for
want
something new, a
security.
new challenge.
I want
security.
a paycheck.
The
and
perception of security. Yeah,
the
steady
reality of it
paycheck would be
is,
great.
My hope, Eric, is that every broker in my company makes more money than I do.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, in Seattle, they should.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
we probably all get the, hey, that's why you're paid the big bucks. And I scratch my head. I go, oh no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
This is not about money.
No.
This role is not about money. And if your why is that, then again, let's talk.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? Because it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
So what is it about then? If it's not about money, what is it about?
it's helping people.
Yeah.
It's back to the helping people, and it's kind of my drug.
Yeah.
It's my drug of choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah. And money is part of it, because my why is my family and playing out my life list.
Yeah.
And money has to be a part. So you have to look at that. But you also have to look at what do you need? What's enough? And does a leadership position within this industry fulfill that?
Yeah.
If you are, a lot of people try and do both, right? And I realize there are some situations. When I was at GreenLink, I had to sell and I had to manage. Some of the most difficult days were doing both.
Yeah.
And so, just finding that balance, and depending on what situation comes up, evaluating both. But that why it's probably not to add a paycheck to your already sales career. I can tell you that's not it.
Yeah. I love what you said. It's your drug of choice,
It is.
and I find that
Sport of
it
choice,
seems like
drug of choice.
you're
I'm on a
addicted.
high.
You're addicted. Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
I know.
Fabulous.
But the beautiful part is, it has given me, permission to combine my personal and my professional life.
Yeah.
So they are not different entities. They are as one. And so those are very symbiotic too.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Laura, this has been amazing. So many good takeaways. I cannot thank you enough for being a part of this. So thank you so much. Lots of great takeaways.
Thanks for the opportunity. We could do this all day.
We could do this all day. Yeah.
Thanks,
So
Eric.
everyone, again, thank you so much for listening, for engaging with us. I greatly appreciate it, and we will see you in the next podcast. Bye.